Morning all, this is a Chess 24 Banter Blitz, 9:30 in the morning today, because of the amazing events in Paris, the Rapid and the Blitz. Let's take the first challenge. Kaz, hello, let's try E3. This has become a bit of a fetish of mine recently to play E3. I guess you could say the English opening is like a reverse Sicilian. So E3 is like a reverse French defense. The most common moves, of course, remain E4 and D4. Is Kaz awake? Maybe I kicked off a minute a bit early. I hope Kaz is there. I'll say maybe hello. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking also as an intellectual challenge that it's interesting to be able to think in reverse to things you may have studied with black and try and apply the concepts in reverse. So I think there's an element of reuse as well, and yeah, more creative thinking in reverse. So I'm not sure Kaz is there actually. Maybe he can challenge later. Okay, let's go on to the next challenge. Phenomen. Morning. Hope someone is around this morning. Yes. I'm pre-moving C takes D4 here. I think it's a pretty safe pre-move. This is quite a common kind of treatment actually of the Sicilian defense at many levels. Well, it's getting more fashionable to avoid the main line anyway. So it's a bit more of a Roy Lopez. Well, maybe that's a bit of an overstatement. A Roy Lopez character. I'm trying to sort of put some pressure on the dark squares here. Now, probably, in a way, it would be better if the bishop was fianchettoed. But that always comes at some cost. When you fianchetto, you're weakening squares around your king. So, here, what's actually happening? Well, D4 might be weak anyway. I'm wondering if I can actually prepare a potential fianchetto. I'm guessing bishop G5 might be answerable. Okay, I was wondering if knight D7. Now maybe D4. Should I be worried about D4? I'm not entirely sure I should be, because I might be getting the C5 square. Okay. If any D4, I might get that C5 square. Now here I could tease my opponent a bit. This might be... oh, hang on. Let's not lose C5. Knight takes D takes. I'm losing C5 there. Okay. This position, it's like the better knight I've swapped off. Because that knight, with this G6 pawn, seems to me a little bit more passive than the other one I've just taken off. Now, do I want to provoke F4? I'm wondering, if I provoke F4, that weakens that diagonal. Maybe I can break in the center with D5. Round about here. Again, it's dissuaded because of that C5 pawn. Okay, what about F5? That's interesting, to try and rip open this diagonal. With Queen C1, that seems to be quite cunning against D5, to take and then Queen takes. Now here I might have knight F7 on Queen G5. I've got that F7 square. I think from a hypermodern point of view, I want to put pressure across the center towards the king with something like bishop C6 and Queen B7 here. I'm thinking, yeah, Queen G5 should be answerable with knight F7. Or even here, it looks as though the bishop's trapped. Actually, bishop G5, it's possible. But I'm not sure that's ideal. In fact, if I took, I could weaken this diagonal and play D5. I think I'm going to do that. So I'm hitting the knights now. This looks like a promising continuation. If king h2, that's walking into a self pin. if the knight moves, maybe takes, and bishop takes e4 after. And what I like about this position is the crossfire of the bishops here. They seem to have an elegance as well. Okay, that knight's hanging. Yeah, I think that crossfire was kind of elegant. Thanks, Fenneman. The commutator. Any videos on the Caracan in the chat? Yeah, I've played some Caracan stuff. If you check my Kingscrusher channel, I've got a Caracan playlist. Okay, let's see. So bishop b6. I answered the question on Quora recently, which was quite abstract. It was, can't really make too many generalizations about openings because they have such a diversity of personality within different variations. But someone asked, you know, is the Caracan more solid than the Sicilian defense? And in fact, I researched the stats, and the win percentage for white, according to, like, say, Chess Games comments, about the same win percentage for white. What seems to happen is that the draws increase at the expense of the wins for black. So, and in particular, I did a little case study on Karpov against Kasparov, and it seems Kasparov never played the Caracan against Karpov, and Karpov never played the Sicilian defense against Kasparov. I mean, I'm talking about classical games, not Blitz. I think I really came to the conclusion that there must be a stylistic fit. So whatever you play, it's got to fit your style. Otherwise, I think it makes sense, because otherwise you're not going to be exploiting what the opening offers to you. You know, if the opening offers, you know, tactical, dynamic play, if you're not a tactical, dynamic, aggressive player like Kasparov, you might not benefit that much from playing the Sicilian. You might just get tactically murdered. And also, if Kasparov played the Caracan, in theory, he might be reducing his winning chances. You know, if he played the Caracan against, say, Nigel Short in that match, the World Championship kind of match they had, then there might be more draws. In the event, Kasparov managed to win quite a lot of games from tactical positions against Short in the Sicilian. So anyway, it was just an interesting question. It's interesting to comment on openings in a sort of fundamental sense. But the thing is, within any opening, there's so many different variations and personalities within, you know, sub-personalities. There's a lot of very razor-sharp stuff, you know, in the Caracan. Okay. In fact, one of my early books, I've got a book by Kasparov and Nikitin. So Kasparov has played the Caracan generally, and he's recommending, like, often castling queenside in a lot of the main line. There's a book devoted to the main line, you know, taking and then bishop f5. Okay, so is this a difficult position? I don't know. Hang on a sec. If I play knight g6 here, now if he takes, I'm wondering if I can take the bishop. If he moves the bishop, I'm wondering if I can take the pawn. You see, I'm just keen on getting this e5 square. Ah, okay, okay. Let's go for it. I hope this is not completely ridiculous thing for me to do. The factors of me getting mated here, this diagonal, this file, somehow I've got to keep a grip on this file and this diagonal, I believe, defensively here. Can that happen? If they converge, I'll get mated. You know, imagine there's a queen d4 check with the rook cutting across escape squares, then I'm dead. Let's tuck the king, I think, for a moment here. Now possibly queen f6. I've noticed something about this position actually. Rook g1, there might be c5 for knight f3. Very naughty, carnivorous knight f3 to have lunch with the fork. For the fork to... Okay, anyway, for the fork on G1 and D2. So yeah, rook G1, C5, knight F3 after. If knight E6, I can take knight F3. Can I try and evict the queen with tempo? That's an interesting thing. Thankfully, my bishop's covering that key tempo gaining square, D5. So I'm thinking what am I thinking here? I'm not sure actually. I'm thinking maybe C5, maybe, or I could damage the pawns here. What about if I just damage the pawns, then C5? Because that knight might be a nuisance later. And in fact, I've ruled out knight E2 now. By taking that knight, I've kind of ruled out knight E2. No, actually, it's protected. Okay. I think I can... It's getting a little bit dangerous. Can I do this? No, my knight's hanging if I take. I'm wondering if this G6 square is useful. Oh. There's tactical bishop F7 here. Rook takes bishop H5. Queen D1, I guess. Queen takes C3. Yeah, I could try this. The pinner can become the victim. Okay, I wasn't expecting that particular tactical idea. Can I give myself F3 support here? I'm just wondering that could be handy. Let's not lose every pawn necessarily. Oh, okay, I have to get out of the firing line there. I don't want to lose a piece either. That's naughty. Didn't see that one. Okay. Is there rook H8? Is that defense? F takes rook H7 after. Alright, it's blocked there, so I'm not losing. I thought I was going to be losing a piece back. But I think there might have been rook H7. Yeah. There might have been. Okay. These pieces seem fragile. Can I do this? If I have bishop takes right, then bishop C6 might cut the rooks off a bit. If I get the opportunity without losing the knight. I can get a tempo there. I'll take that. Maybe kind of restrict the rooks a bit. In fact, okay, thank you. I think rook F2 might be coming. Now shooting forward. I guess he wants revenge from last week. Let's try E3. I managed to take a game off him last week. Yeah, he's got a plus score against me. This is going to be tricky. Just wondering if that C5 square, B4, knight A4 could be handy. Okay, but I have to put that on hold for a moment, that plan. Maybe I can renew the plan. Knight B3, knight C5. And this is a tactic, you know, knight takes and bishop c2. Knight takes and bishop c2 if I play knight b3. That's not refutable, is it? Let's put the knight back for a moment. That might be a bit ambitious, knight b3, in the circumstance of the rook on c8. This way, it's a kind of more... He's blocked that now, so maybe knight b3. This is on the cards again, without this tactical knight takes b4. I'm not sure I mind that. It's kind of French defense, what I kind of played this for. Reverse French defense strategy. Rook c1 and knight c5. Interesting. Some pressure on the queen side here. On the f5 g3, I guess he could try and smash me with g5. Can I just gain a bit here on the queen side? Maybe light squares to protect the bishop. If I double up rooks, then b5 is going to be interesting. I guess he's playing g5, super aggressive. Can I prepare for the onslaught? I'm hoping. Can I be a nuisance? With rook g1 or something. Knight c5 later for this diagonal. Or maybe not. If I get rook g1 in, what does it do? We have takes and rook f2. I'm not entirely sure. Funny enough. I assume he's trying to arrange some tactical onslaught of my king. Keeping an eye on the queen side c file just in case this can come to my rescue. And if I played knight c5, trying to get my bishop involved. If I have two, the passed pawn as well could be dangerous. Just trying to get this bishop involved, really. I don't want to be without counterplay. It might not be objectively best, but it liberates the bishop. Maybe I can treble here on this g file. It takes away d6 as well. There's a passed pawn here. Takes away d6. Okay, I'll treble. It is... Queen h4, rook g6. If he... Let's get the bishop back. Knight e4, bishop takes queen g8. If it takes d5, knight e4 might be... What about h4? Can I push him? Or rook h3? Queen h4 maybe, threatening rook g6. I'm not threatening rook g6 actually. Okay, we got this bishop involved. If I take... King takes. So he's on my queen. Okay, I'll see. Does he take with the king? All right, he takes with the king. Queen h6, is that dangerous? Well, that's an interesting one. I want to take on d5. I just realised Queen g5. Would have been interesting. Maybe I can get the bishop to b3. So he's going to have rook g5 here. Isn't there taking Queen g8? No, it's not working. Can I get my queen out of the firing line or not? Probably not. That will get a lot of exchanges. Maybe this for rook g4. Trying to answer that. Alright, now d5 pressure. If I have a pin, that will really help. c6, c7. Try and work with the pin, the diagonal, and g-file here. Okay, is c7 possible? Or if I take and then queen c7 check, king e8, not so hot. Rook c6, is that's a nasty pin, rook c6. He's got passed pawns though now. f2, rook f1. I have to address his stuff. Oh, okay, this might not be working out too well. Can I take or I take? I'll offer a draw if he wants. It's a good game. Yeah, a little fun workout in the morning. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Okay, so okay. Yeah, little fun workout in the morning. Okay, zoom missed. I was looking forward to that pin with rook c6. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Oh man. C'est la vie. Knight e5 might even be good as a pawn sack, because if I can get onto those dark squares later, I can let him win a3, I think. If he wants to take it and take on a3, maybe c5 traps in the bishop. If bishop b4 takes, and I've got the pin against a8. So knight takes, bishop takes, c5, traps in the bishop. Is f4? No, I don't think f4 is dangerous because I'll dismantle black on f4. Let's stick a knight in here. e4 can't be allowed to fall apart here, surely. I'm thinking cd to put some queenside scrutiny in this position. The light square in particular, b5 seems sensitive. Maybe knight a4 here holds e5. b5, knight c5. Maybe I'm losing a piece. And there's knight b6 there. That's possible for knight b6, maybe. b5, knight b6. The other thing, f3 looks interesting, but there's knight g5. The knight's always going to crawl back. You know, h4, knight f7 or e6. I think this weakening of b6 is interesting here, that I can use b6. I will use b6 here. Just to suppress b5. This pawn looks a bit dislocated from black's position. Maybe queen e1 to try and win that pawn sneakily. Unless f4 is going to smash me up here, I think queen e1 is plausible. Well, I'm going into a self-pin, bishop c7, queen a5. It's suspicious. Maybe there's... If I kick away the knight, I'll have c5. If I have c5, I can play queen e1. Say bishop c7, queen a5. I'm thinking I'll have queen c5 later, hitting the queen, protecting the knight, getting out of the self-pin. So in that regard, f3 here might be handy. So idea, queen takes, bishop c7, queen c5. It's not good to go in self-pins in general. Okay. Intriguing. I'll take off that knight. And I can just take on a5, right? And this is, look at the forcing moves, knight f3, there's knight f3. I think I can snatch that pawn. Securing some endgame prospects with passed pawns there. As long as I can hold the dark square grip enough. e4. He's going to crash through with f3 after. Probably better to play rook e1. To try and hold against f3. You know, if I played e4, he could take and then play f3. This way, I think that e-file could be interesting. I'm just wondering about forcing moves here that could be handy theoretically. This one, or this one, of course. Oh, actually, then there's knight g6 hitting the queen and the rook on f4 there. So e takes, rook takes, knight g6 is a double attack on the queen and the rook. Okay, I can just double rooks here, surely. Then I'll be threatening stuff. Or Alekine's gun, rook e2, queen e1, Alekine's gun. Where you got the queen behind the two rooks. Is it worth doubling? Was it worth playing queen e1? Queen e1 has an advantage of... I could bounce on this diagonal somewhere. Maybe not here, because... Okay, let's just double the rooks here for a moment. h4. I could aim to be greedy with knight takes c6, rook e6. Triggers off Interesting sequence of events. Knight c6, rook e6, because I'm forking then the queen and bishop on d6. I don't want to give counterplay with this f takes. I think just taking is clearer, as Karpov would prefer clarity over nebulous complications any time of day. Holding h4 even here. Keeping that bishop at bay, keeping the f file at bay for a moment. Rook g4 seems plausible. Taking, I get a tempo on the queen. My queen should probably come back in the game. Yeah, queen d2, queen g5 should probably come back in the game. I get the tempo before any bishop takes f3 happens. Well, I thought I did. There's queen g5 here threatening mate and the bishop. Thanks, Azumist. Marcel Kircher. Okay, so this is, I don't know, the price is blocking the bishop, but actually there's a lot less hassle in this line by doing that, because c4 is not a gambitable pawn if I tried, because sometimes people snatch that pawn and try and hold on to it in the Slav. I can slowly work my way for e4 here. Okay, in this case I'm going to try and do something with this bishop. I don't want it killed by its own pawn structure. This diagonal seems promising. If I keep the position fairly open, that bishop shouldn't be that dead. Maybe rook d1, knight e5 is on c6, but to make that better, I think rook c1 first to target c6. Alright, c5 can be answered with d5 if I play this, which looks pretty as well, of course. Let's put the bishop more meaningfully to play knight e5 now. I think it was just hitting blank air there for nothing. So I've either got d5 or knight e5. Which one? I'm thinking knight e5 if takes queen c6. I might have f3 to avoid getting mated. So I'm on f7 there. The forcing move bishop f7 must come into theoretical observation at least here. At some point it might be handy. But knight e5, yeah, it's supported by my kind of trump card, that bishop the opponent hasn't got. So I'm on f7. So queen c6 threatens mate. f3 I'm hoping is sufficient. Maybe no, not f4, knight e4. I got to keep an eye on e4 here as well. f3 will do it. Suppress the diagonal. Knight h5, knight d7, bishop d5, queen moves. Queen c4 threatens f7. Maybe rook d6 here. Rook d6 is looking good. I can double rooks and play for e6. Maybe I need to hold that pawn now. e4 is not so exploitable as earlier. The knight's not popping into e4 that quickly. So this might be more justified, because otherwise he's just taking on e5, surely. So if I can double rooks and play for e6, I mean that's the dream here, because it would actually liberate this bishop as well as this one. So rook d1, e6 is the dream. There's also, with this move, I've got queen h5 on f7, fg6, queen g6, or rook g6, because that pinned pawn. So I'm wondering, yeah, double the rooks, queen h5 or e6. Maybe queen h5 here. Doubling here. Well, I'm tempted just with queen h5. I can double to support e6 with the rook held, otherwise I'm just dropping the rook. So I can double, I hope, and then e6. Alright, if he wants to give me a pawn there. If I take with the pawn, he's got queen c6 again. If I take with the rook, I holds the c6 square. He's got rook d8. Oh, there's queen f7 there. Queen f7, bishop f7, rook d8. So maybe rook d6 is better, just to hold c against queen c6. Okay, queen b7's coming. Well, I always have bishop d5, but he's on this pawn. Shall I hold this pawn first? So bishop d5. Maybe queen f3 and just get the queen to d5. It's a dominant position on d5. So if he wants to take on d5, queen d5. If he wants to come here, at least I've got my pawn in advance protected. What can I do with the queen on d5 here? Do I have to play f5 and e6? Maybe. The bishop is supporting that pawn. f5 and e6 is a coordinated effort here. The knight's holding the entry point. Okay, he's provoking me to play f5. Knight g5, e6. But there's also rook d7 here. I think rook d7 and f5. If knight g5, h4 to kick the knight away from f7. I think a rook on the 7th is not to be underestimated. I had this game on Friday against the GM. I should have mated him. I missed the mate. The funny thing, in post-mortem, I was convinced the rook on the 7th was a killer. It was, but there's also, I mean, there were various ways of skinning the cat. But here, okay, knight g5, h4 looks crushing enough. Knight f8, queen f7 is exploiting the rook on the 7th. I'm mating in 2 there. But so h4 here looks as though it should be good. I seem to be dominating the position. I just need to remove the defender. I can't see a reply to this. That's good news. I don't think there's a reply. Knight moves, I'm just taking, okay. So we're back to e6 is liberating the bishop, if nothing else. Downside, slight downside of queen g3. Is there a risk of perpetual check? I can take on f7, king moves, queen f3, queen e1, king h2, queen check, queen h3 is pinning the queen to the king there. So I'm not sure this perpetual check mechanism is working. if the king's on h8. I think this is mating nearly. It should be. The king's very exposed. As long as I don't blunder horribly. Cutting the escape here for queen h3. I'm hoping there's g4 there on queen h4. Okay, thanks for the game, Marcel. I can't accept invites from non-premium. You have to be premium member to challenge. Banana monkey. Bananas a good source of potassium. I've seen grandmasters eat bananas at the Southend all play all. I think it's the choice of grandmasters. Bananas for the potassium, helps the brain, I think, a little bit. Not too much. Bananas a day, I'm talking like 1 or 2. Funny enough, there was a question on Quora about food as well. I've asked recently. I'm really into it recently, and John Piggott is one of my club mates. He went all the way to Reykjavik. He's 59 years old, and he actually got his final IM norm at the age of 59. And we had this club dinner the other night, and he mentioned sort of going a bit vegetarian, but having fish. And fish has B12. I think, yeah, there's something to B12, I think, for brain stuff. They say it's like related to the brain. There's some evidence anyway that B12 could be beneficial. But you get that in fish. And so, yeah, we quizzed him about his diet, and so he'd gone mostly vegetarian, but with fish as the caveat, and that's the B12 caveat, actually. So it was interesting, yeah. So we actually, my club won the North Circular Chess League. I had a very dramatic final game, piece down for 2 pawns, and I managed to swindle it, funny enough. So that helped secure, actually, yeah, we needed to win that match to avoid a playoff. So we avoided a playoff, and we had our club dinner just on Tuesday. So yeah, John Piggott, what I find remarkable about the whole thing as well is the kind of adventurousness. I don't know if I could like take off for like Reykjavik to play in the Reykjavik Open. I think it would be a very, very cool thing to do, because you could visit Fischer's grave is there as well. He ended up there in Reykjavik, but they take chess really seriously. I mean, they really respect chess. You're not a nerd, apparently, in Reykjavik. So they have been fundamentally altered, I think, because of the 1972 match. So John, yeah, he beat Shirov in one of the games. It's actually on my channel. It's incredible. His first IM norm goes back several years, and I was actually in his first IM norm all play all. I was a bit of a hacker. I didn't do very well, funny enough, but I was like the lowest rated entrant at about 2250 at the time, or just above 2200. But he got his first IM many years back, and I'm so happy for him. He helped us actually win the Hearts League, which we hadn't won. This is a few years back, for 40 years or something. Pivotal to some of our club successes. And he had a record ECF rating on one list 2 or 3 years ago of 270 or something, 275, something ridiculous. It was based on 5 games. He just won 5 straight games against strong opposition. So it was just a statistical anomaly. But he's added some weight to it by beating Shirov in the Reykjavik Open earlier in the year. He doesn't even play e4. He actually beat Shirov playing e4, where most of the time he's playing c4, the English opening. I think Shirov had been softened up, though, by this Ian Hambleton earlier, who also got a GM norm. So Shirov was good for helping people get their norms in the Reykjavik Open. But probably a bit pissed off and wanting to go home by that point in the final round. Can I unpin here? It's sort of weakening my king, isn't it? Let's play g4. Kind of tempted. This is not even a threat because of bishop h7. I could play bishop c2. Maybe that's better. Oh, knight. Queen d3 allows knight e4. I'm not sure what my point is here of this position. Perhaps knight e5 is interesting, given that the d pawn is immune because of taking and bishop h7, winning the queen. Knight e5 seems tempting. Maybe then f4, g4 and f5. Did I just blunder my queen? I did, didn't I? Oh, Muppets. Oh man. Oh, I just blundered my queen. Okay, so I'm playing a queen odds game now. That's nice. I'm glad he's like taking his time here because this is going to be fun. Okay, yeah. It is early in the morning. I was just drifting off there. I was thinking, night. Yeah, that's a really fun plan. Oh, the details. The devil's in the details, really, isn't it? Oh dear. Okay, time to wake up. I've still got a few pieces on. So what's the betting I can win this? Bets are on. Okay, 10-1, 5-1. Tell me the odds. Tell me the odds here. Come on stream. What are the odds? This is a queen odds game. Come on. He's taking his time. I think my odds are going up. He could have played knight e4 to get some pieces off for clarification. What is he doing? Is he playing for knight e5? I'm not going to allow that. What are the odds? Tell me the odds on the stream of me winning this. I want to try and prove you guys wrong. Let me see if I can pull something off here. I've just blundered again, haven't I? Okay. Bishop d4 takes. I'll be a rook down. Maybe I should keep some pieces on. I gotta focus now. Storytelling is over. That's a piece I can take, right? Do I take on f8 first? Is my rook stranded on queen d6? Okay, he's threatening f1. Is he mating me necessarily? If I play rook e3, is it worth it to try and guard my back row? Things are getting nasty, I gotta say. I don't like this pin. That's very unfriendly in the circumstance, I gotta say. The check. I can actually win d5. This. Don't panic. That's the thing. You shouldn't panic in these situations. I'm talking to my opponent, not me. I'm trying not to be panicky. Don't panic. Don't panic. He panicked. I'm afraid he panicked. But he only had a few seconds there. I'm sorry. I drifted off. Yeah, the knight was pinned. That was very naughty. That was very naughty. He deserves the bunny ears, if I can find them. Where have my bunny ears gone? I have to show the bunny ears. Oh, he made me bunny. Oh, I can't find them. Sorry, guys. I don't know. They're somewhere. Oh, I can't see them. Ugh. Anyway, virtual bunny ears. Okay, you can imagine them. Oh boy. I mentioned about don't panic last week, I believe, didn't I? So I think it's a good prelude to mental control, and then you can research the resources. It's a prelude resource, I believe now. My latest thoughts on it from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Take control mentally of a horrible situation first, and then try and rationally maybe find the best decision. I don't know, that's maybe in other areas of decision making that's handy, well, in general. So bishop e2 and castling. It's woken me up a bit, that game. It's quite yeah, a wake-up call. A wake-up call. A5 could splinter the pawns on b6, right? It would isolate some pawns. Might be worth doing. I don't want to drop the centre pawn. I'm not entirely convinced by bishop f3. I like the bishop on this. It's on a6. So maybe f3 is justified. Does weaken f4 a bit. There are downsides to everything, basically. Does weaken f4 a bit. But I want to keep the bishop trained on a6 in the event of b5 I can take, and a6 is weaker. f4 might not be that exploitable. I might be able to play g3. With this, it's almost a splintering anyway, because c5 is more vulnerable. But a6 looks like it's going to drop here. I just need to protect b2. In fact, rook a6 is possible, isn't it, because of the bishop. My queen's protected by the bishop. So let's see, queen c7. If I double the rooks, queen b2, well, his bishop's hanging. That was the point. I thought you had to play queen c7. Now c5 is weaker as well. Probably I can take bishop c5. And probably play rook f6 as well, just to simplify. I'm trying to find a perfect move or a practical move. That's an interesting one. Perfect move or a practical move. A practical move might just be rook a6. Yeah, let's just play a practical move. Just let the pawn drop back. Simplification, I can take on c5. And this is rook c2. Maybe there's rook a3. I think rook a3 might be sufficient. And there's rook c8. Bishop b4, rook b2. Do I need this mess? Can I not just play something simpler, like rook b1 here, to further simplify? If rook c2, okay. Well, the back row's weak here. Gives me bishop b5. Good one. Nevertheless, I'm still the exchange up. I thought you'd take here. Right, thanks for the game, Pesho. KM Beast 007, License to Kill, huh? James Bond 007. Okay. Is he there? I mean, you guys got to put this tick box. Last time I checked a few months back, was informed. Are you doing the tick box? Is the game automatically popping up? Okay, maybe it is. Don't mind this. It seems intuitively that these squares, weakening them, is not a fantastic way of playing for a big advantage anyway. It's novel, but it might not be that critical for black here. It's kind of mixing hypermodern with classical in a way, the hypermodern fianchetto. I don't want to be hacked to death with a knight sack. Is there going to be a knight sack? Just in case, let's get rid of this knight. Or maybe d5 for bishop takes g4. If bishop e2, knight e2. If queen e2. I can think about things. But d5 here might be an energetic central response to this flank attack. Like so here, d5 kind of unpins as well, f7 potentially. I think at minimum I'll have knight g6 anyway, so I'll go for it. So bishop g4, bishop e2, knight e2, queen e2. Oh, there's two pieces hanging. Oh, that's the point, I see. I'm going to unpin, I hope, f7 with c6 and b5. There is a forcing move here, d3 to consider in variations now. But first, if I can unpin, then maybe f5 can energize my position here. HG, f takes, I seem to have nice centre pawns. Taking, g-file could be dangerous. But again, I think I'm energizing the position with f5. The g-file is a long way from castling queenside, the way that configuration is. You'd have to move the bishop, then move the queen, then castle queenside. So if the king's stuck in the centre, this taking in d3 is interesting. I'm hitting two bishops. If bishop g7, d takes, he's got this. But even so, it seems dangerous to allow this d3 capability. Is it refutable? Should I just be taking here in principle anyway, and then g5 just to block? Just to block the h file up. I'm hoping he hasn't got time for hg. e3 here works tactically because it takes him on the bishop. Queen c1. I'm coming in for the kill with queen d6. So e3 looks pretty convincing to me. Rook f2 he could just castle, he doesn't have to take for e3. But e3 looks pretty good. So I'm on that bishop. Now queen d6 here takes on g7, queen g3, king d1. There's a check here to blunt the diagonal. If I can provoke c3 and then go back to c7 just to avoid any discussion about bishop takes g7. So queen c7 for queen g3. Oh, hang on, he can take on e3. That was dumb. Okay, I think try and think about what's going on here more. Okay, cool. Queen f4, queen e3. Alright, let's stop this h-file business. Even if I'm losing that pawn, I don't think it wasn't in my plan. But if I can have active rooks here. Will he allow this? Because queen d2, rook f2, rook e1, queen e5 looks like a nasty self-pin. If he has queen d6 as a nasty self-pin, as long as there's no d4 and a check, it looks like a nasty self-pin to go into. There's a pin this way as well, queen e5. So the bishop can't move without queen e1. Rook h1, I think I'm just taking that. d4, I'm just... Maybe I'll take on e2, take... The queen moves to d1, I can take here, so that's 3 pieces for the queen. With the prospect of bishop g4, bishop f5 cutting across the diagonal. So that might be worth it here. 3 pieces for the queen looks fun. With 2 pigs on the 7th. As long as I'm not getting mated or perpetual check time. Let's see, the perpetual checks are limited because my bishop's controlling e8 and e6. So if I have time for rook b2, rook a2, I'll be threatening mate with either rook a1 or rook f1. So I think I've got time to gobble. I'll play rook a2. Pigs on the 7th. There's bishop g4 here. You can play rook f8, but I think I just take. We're going to just take on a2. If he takes there, then the check, and I win the queen. Alright, let's not be too sophisticated about this. No, hang on. I take with the king. Bishop a3 there. Takes bishop a3. Tries to go in for the perpetual, but rook f1 mate. So takes bishop a3, holds the rook for rook f1. So rook f8, bishop takes, queen takes. Oh, he's got perpetuals. Might be allowing perpetuals. I'm taking the queen here. Bishop g5. Two connected pawns look too dangerous to me. Thanks for the game, Cam Beast. Okay, Amando. Alright, so this is I want to play for knight e5. That's my point here. I had this point of inspiration 2-3 weeks ago in a bullet game against Lion where I could entrench a lot on e5 at minimum with this reverse French defense. So I've been taking it up as a pet recently because I like the idea of a knight on e5 in this situation. As long as black hasn't got knight e4, I have a certain comfortable grip, I would say here, which is ideal for blitz games, because this f file is an automatically activated rook with pressure on f7 potentially, if that's ever taken. So Tartko once said a knight on e5 and the attack plays itself. I think he had a point. That guy was really quite clever. If f6, or maybe knight g6. Let's see, hg, bishop g6. With the idea queen h5, f5, rook f3, that sort of thing. It looks a bit dangerous to play f6. It does weaken this diagonal. The pawn chain is going. So f5 and queen h5 look to me dangerous, with prospects of rook f3, rook h3 or g3. That bishop at minimum will be hemmed in as well. This bishop will be liberated across this diagonal. If I can keep the bishop hemmed in, so say e5, I think I want to keep that bishop hemmed in. I can threaten mate immediately. In fact, e4, there's queen d5 here. So given that's the case, maybe f5 should be put on hold, assuming black is defending this. Mind you, hang on, check and f takes is nasty, I think. If rook here, I can even take the rook there. So what is the defense here anyway? Ah, okay. You crushed me well, thanks for the game. Yes, it looks difficult to defend actually. Thanks, Cicero. Okay, Cicero 28. Bonnet Chess Club did have another IM in the past. He's still playing a bit, Neil Bradbury. But yeah, now we've got kind of two. It's cool. Even cooler. So Bradbury is an honorary life member because of that achievement. I did find it inspirational to play along, John, in some of the matches, actually. Some of the explanations, it's really quite educational, inspirational. If you've got a local over-the-board club and a really strong player in it, it's really cool, I think, sometimes. I want to play knight d3 and f4 plan. So to do that, queen c2, knight e1 to d3, rook a e1, f4. As long as black's not capturing e5 with a knight outpost, then that should be a good positional method here. Knight e1 to d3, rook a e1. Yeah, the concern is the e5 square with this plan. Maybe he's playing for f5. Yeah. Okay. Change the plan. Can I play g4? I've played this sort of thing before against King's Indians. I think I've called it the Shirov system, actually. If takes some king g2, rook h1 is okay, I think. If this, my bishop's in the wrong place. Can I play knight f2? h5 is coming up. Maybe bishop g4 is coming up. Knight f2, there's h5. Queen d2, there might be bishop g4 and f3. Bishop f3. Rook f3, rook f3, queen g4. Maybe there's rook g3 there. In that case, I'll risk this for queen e1. On h5 though, that remains an issue or not. Queen e1, queen h3, there's knight f2. So if he plays h5, he's locking it out his queen from returning after queen e1. If he takes hg, fg, as long as f3 is not a problem. Normally I'd have the bishop sticking around on d2 to kick, to play bishop e1. So here it's interesting, we've blocked both our sort of pawn storms, him with c5, because usually c5 is a thematic break for white. And I'm trying to close down this side of the board. Will he accept an exchange of queens? Queen h3, knight f2, queen h4 is possible though. Oh, I'm surprised. I'm surprised. I'm thinking king g2 and rook h1 here. Without the queens on, I have got a certain stored space advantage in the position, in theory. So I would hope that I can do something with the queen side at some point. It's probably likely to be a bit drawish though. I can take the opportunity for b4 here, but he gets c5. So this way, trying to avoid giving c5 on the plate. a5 might do more damage than good. Okay. Oh, I didn't expect that. Can I not play a little dynamically now, or not? He's trying to get that c5 at some cost. If I play knight b5, knight square bishop, gets that c5. I'm just running c5 here, ab. I guess knight takes and he takes after. Knight c6. This is a pawn sack. I have an idea that this pawn sack is depriving black for a moment for that c5 square. And say he took with this pawn, he's weakening that e5 part of the chain, trying to blow up the pawn chain here thematically with c5. It doesn't look like it's ideal circumstances, But actually, you know, A takes, knight takes. Yeah, maybe, you know, knight c6. And if he ever took, then knight b5. I'm thinking this is compensation for the pawn. Knight b5, knight c6, knight d6, for example. And e5 is dismantled a bit. Okay, so there's c7 here. Okay, there is, say there's knight b3. Maybe bishop c3, encouraging knight b3, because I'm wondering this pawn's quite dangerous. So say knight b3, okay. Bishop c4 might be good. It looks like a fine bishop. Ever knight d4. I've got entry points covered. That means maybe I can play... Well, bishop d5 here looks nice. Maybe I should have taken on a8 first. Oh, I'm hoping I'm not going to regret that. Now I can take and then rook a7. If I take with the bishop, it's not doing anything anyway. And there's bishop b7 to follow. That bishop b7 here picks up an exchange. But maybe rook a7 is better. Rook a8. If takes, takes, king d7, bishop c6. If takes c8. Yeah, that looks good to unblockade. So king d7, bishop c6. If king takes c8, queening. Well, there's rook e8 here. Now, can I hold his pawns or not? Try and hold the grip on the pawns. Can I blockade with the king? Have to preview that. Blockade with the king, just generally on the light squares, and try and make progress from here. So what's the ideal, the dream scenario? A knight on d5, maybe. How do I get a knight to d5 via b6? Maybe. Maybe the bishop can hang around this diagonal. Okay, I'm thinking to put the bishop on d3 and work with the king. Stop king c6, play bishop d3, try and get a zugzwang. Try and push the king out with... I've been studying bishop and knight mate. This is kind of reminiscent. Practicing bishop and knight mate the other day. And you have to work with your king and the minor pieces on both sides of the hypotenuse. If you practice bishop and knight mate, it's quite fun actually. The mathematics of it. He's quite a way to get into the position here. So I'm hoping my g5 now. I can herd with, yeah. It's still quite a way to get into the position. As in the bishop and knight against king mate, the bishop and knight can create a wall against the opponent's king. That's 1-1. Trying to create a wall against the opponent's king. Okay, so Don Williams, hi. If you want to learn bishop knight against king, there's a beauty. It is actually very beautiful to practice, even to practice it against the computer, ideally, for maximum resistance. But I do find it quite beautiful, actually. You can revise it from, you can learn the method, the triangle method from the Majnu 2000, Majnu 2016. No, Majnu something. Majnu search for bishop and knight mate, but that's one of the better ones, I think. To check out the triangle method. So it's like, but yeah, I think it does show more than what it apparently seems. It shows about how the bishop and knight can actually complement each other to create a wall against the opponent's king. And how the king like works like with a nice team member with those minor pieces. So maybe that sort of thing is it's kind of instructive for other positions. Here, Queen C6 threatens mate. Just wondering about Knight F7 here, Queen E6, King F8. That's not harmful, is it, for black at the moment? Could it be? If he plays H6, Knight E6, and I simply take on G6. So I think H6 might be out of the question because of Knight takes E6. Now Knight F7 here, Queen E6, King F8. There's another way of looking at this. With he's got Knight F4 as a resource. How have I got to simply Queen H5 here? Knight F6, Queen H3, and yeah. If H6, Knight E6 hitting the Queen. If Knight F6, Queen H3, I might have made progress there with my Queen on H3. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you can just play Bishop takes G5. Okay. I'm thinking Knight F6, Queen H3. Okay. Hold F4 for a moment. Again, I could consider... no, actually, I don't know. Tricky. It's one of those positions I'm thinking to wait for the opponent's next move to have a bit more detailed information. Knight F5. Knight F5 is often, as Ben Feingold says, interesting and dangerous. Pins that knight anyway to G6. If he took, then Queen G7. So Knight F4 takes. Does he take with a pawn? In that case, takes with the pawn. Sorry, H4, H6, Queen G4. H4 might be worth a punt. I'm just wondering about this Queen C6 here. Is the move... no, I don't know. Actually, he's not threatening mate. My queen's on G2. The queen could be lifted though with a pawn move at some point. So if I did play F3, there might be rook. No, there's not rook E3 yet. Possibly F3 is an idea then. On Queen C6. I think I'm threatening H5 here. Let's imagine H6 is played. Okay, don't have to imagine H6 anymore. I'm threatening maybe H5 here. Right. So Knight H6. king h8. And if I played, what if I just played queen takes f4 here? Is that not a pawn? I don't really like the self-pin concept. Knight takes d6, rook d8 is not usually something you want to do. On the other hand, queen takes d6. It looks a lot safer to do queen takes d6. Pig on the 7th. Imminent. Rook e7. Cool pigs on the 7th, even by GMs, because they sort of greedy for eating pawns, which are statistically on the 7th rank. But also statistically, you're restricting a king as well, so it's a nice pattern to be aware of. Trying to get rooks on the 7th or pigs on the 7th. 2 pigs are better than 1. Rook e7 here for bishop c4. Pig on the 7th. I know there's only 2 pawns it's attacking. Bishop c4, king h8, knight f7, king g7, knight g5, king h6, rook h7 is not mating as a knight h7. Nevertheless, this seems to be winning anyway because of knight f7 taking. Thanks for the game, Don Williams. Press. B4, the orangutan. The orangutan. I've got an orangutan specialist on my own site, Chessworld, a correspondence style site, very different to this style of chess. So you can have like 5 days of move. But I've got this thematic organizer who's been mad on the orangutan the last 10 years. I made him a thematic organizer. All sorts of start positions from the orangutan. B4. All Polish? He's Polish. I think there's a Polish connection there as well. Okay. Positionally, you know, it's interesting. I'm just gonna close there and try and maybe use c5 as a pivot, maybe for knight e6. Okay, that c5 looks okay, but I've probably given f5. I'm wondering bishop f6, knight f5, knight c5. Or can I wait for knight f5 before playing bishop f6? Maybe I can wait for knight f5 here. So knight f5, bishop f6. Yeah. Let's see what's happening here. His e4 unfortunately is adequately defended. I was just glancing second check just then. It is adequately defended, right? Now if I played rook e8 trying to provoke some weakness on the diagonal. But there's also knight f4 in this position. Knight f4 in this position. Rook e8 might be redundant now. Knight f4. G6 looks plausible. In fact, okay, so Queen G5 looks dangerous, threatening Knight H3 check and winning the knight. I guess it's not a big deal, threat. Actually, is it a big deal or not? It's kind of, yeah. Here, I think it's interesting to play Knight H3 and Queen takes E3. He doesn't really want to weaken this diagonal, surely. There's things like Knight E4 to be considered, or Queen F3 simply. Maybe Knight E4 is perhaps the more spectacular way of playing this position. After taking check, Bishop G2, it's not sufficient. Why not just play with some clarity? In fact, taking and taking on B3. Yeah. In fact, I could just take on B3. Yeah, that's kind of clarity. Just take on B3. And if Rook A3, there's Queen takes C1. Oh, sorry, okay. Okay, I'll take this. This is distracted by the F3 issue, but this side of the board is interesting for winning material. If Rook B1, Knight takes A1. So if Rook here, Queen takes C1, not Knight takes C1 because Rook takes E3. This looks as though things are falling apart here. Knight takes is hitting the Queen, funny enough. Okay, now I'll come back to my original story of Queen takes F3. Unless there's anything else, I mean, okay. Right, I can get the knight out. In fact, Rook E3, there's, well, I can just take the rook. Here. I can get the queens off like a chicken, simplifying like a chicken, but it's standard procedure. Thanks. Play one more. Yeah, make this the final game. Hope you enjoyed today. If you want like 1 fun, 10 boring, I hope you found it fun a bit. Okay, if you want to vote, you know, on that, that'd be cool. I think this D6 response is okay. Yeah. Probably the main move, in fact, if you looked in an opening book. Okay, I'm a bit cautious though about this position. I guess I want to play for D5 in a solid kind of Slavian structure, potentially later with C6. Slav structure. going to give my bishop h7 just in case of knight h4. So at the moment, I'm concerned at the moment, but let's say d5 is a grip on the e4 square. So I've gone classical here with pawn on d5, literally occupying the center as opposed to trying to indirectly control the center. So I'm literally occupying a bit more, some key squares. So d5, the knight blocking in the pawn, you might think, is peculiar. And yeah, it does support e5 though sometimes. So I'm going to run with the idea that e5 is a major perk of the knight on c6 here. The rebellious knight on c6 blocking in its own pawn. Pawn's saying to the knight, hey knight, you blocked me in, what are you doing? And the knight's saying, well look, you know, I can play for e5 here. Okay, just hang on a bit, I'll unblock you soon. And okay, Chigorin would be proud. The adopted father of the Soviet chess school, Chigorin, Mikhail Chigorin. So a fan of quirky stuff. Okay, so here unfortunately the bishop's not hanging on e2. On the bright side of this, maybe I should have tried to win a pawn there. We're taking in queen takes d4 just then. Second opportunity to do this now. Yeah, I think it's tempting to win that centre pawn. So queen takes d4 with tempo. I'm hoping no major disaster. In fact, even a7 is protected from d4, but at the moment he has to handle the knight on c3. So what happens here? Self-pin, knight e4, knight d1. Is that naughty to have that position? Knight e4. He hasn't got rook e4, is he? Nope. Self-pin. Knight d1. Or knight a4. If I take, possibly knight c3 is a good idea here now, with a view to I don't know, actually I don't know, I'm thinking the a2 pawn or something, or maybe just I've got this pawn majority here. I'm wondering if oh, b5 looks as though it's winning a piece. And if yeah, b5 looks really cool here from my perspective, because I think this is holding the knight. Yeah, that looks to be winning a piece. If rook c1, I can probably just take this. Take. Okay. Okay. I think it's going to be. I'm wondering if it's going to be this 12:30 next week. So I hope you enjoyed this session. And I was lucky to remain unscathed too much. Didn't beat me up this week too badly. Thanks. I'll sleep more easily. And okay, see you next week then. Remember to like the video and check out Majnu's Bishop and Knight against King. If you don't know how to make with Bishop and Knight against King, it's really cool mathematically. Controlling the hypotenuse, honest. Okay, thanks so much. Cheers then.